Hello guys, this is your friend from ninjavibeZ and we are back with a new fanfic, which is what if Naruto rose as the Alpha Jinchūriki and chose Hinata and Hanabi as his Foxbound Queens Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Team 7 stood in front of the full council, civilian and shinobi together. The reason they were present during a coup d'etat, and Konoha needed to know if they could use it to their advantage in any way. But first the council needed to hear the full story. So Kakashi gave them his report. At the end they were all very quiet, processing what had exactly happened. The civilian were worried to learn that Nar was in fact the heir of Whirlpool. That certainly placed them in a difficult position. Even if they were never violent towards the boy, they often found ways to make his life miserable, like slightly upping the prices or selling slightly spoiled food. Nothing too noticeable and easily deniable. But the boy knew it. While the civilians were considering ways to erase their previous mistakes, the ninja were quickly connecting the dots, especially one Hyuga Hiyashi. Uzumaki-sama, said the Hyuga, surprising everyone by treating him as an equal. Could you give me some of your time after this meeting? I wish to discuss some things regarding your trade fleet. Why? But of course, Hyuga-sama. It would be my pleasure, answered Naruto with a bright smile. Keep the pleasantries for later, please, interrupted the Sandame. Kakashi, what is Wave's current political status? Our client was proclaimed as the new daimyo, but he isn't a politician. I doubt he'll keep the position for long. Additionally, it should be mentioned that all the officials of the former daimyo who could have taught or advised him have resisted during the assault on the palace. So, he's on his own to manage a country without any formation or advices. Sake Haruno raised her hand and Hizen nodded in her direction to allow her to talk. Sandame-sama, maybe we should send humanitarian aid to Wave in order to improve the Leaf's standing among the population. With the political situation described by Haki-san, they would no doubt ask to be placed under Leaf Protectorate after a few years. Danzo was giving Naruto a slightly disappointed gaze, saddened that he hadn't thought of that. He quickly reconsidered when he saw the gigantic and slightly wicked smile on the blonde's face. My apologizes, Haruno-san, I am afraid I already did that. After all, I couldn't possibly let all those poor orphans to fend for themselves, could I? The civilian side looked at him with wide eyes, shocked that a mere 12 years old managed to beat them to the punch. They could have sworn it was a political maneuver if it wasn't for the sheer honesty in his voice. The ninja side saw right through it, and Naruto received more than one appraising look. Hai, in particular, seemed to have even more interest in him, while Danzo had to forcibly contain his proud smile. From the corner of his eye, the old warhawk saw Hiruzen smiling amusedly at him. Sake Haruno quickly recovered. As the head of the Konoha Mercantile Guild, she refused to be outdone by a kid. Uzumaki-san, I heard your thief is barely recovering and still under reconstruction. Is it really wise to spend so many resources? Nar waved off her concern without a care, not even for the clear disrespect. Ma, don't worry. Whirlpool will be fine since we rebuilt our ports. Trade is going just fine and more towns are being rebuilt. And if we find ourselves in a shortage of supplies, well, Daimyo-sama owes me $1 billion or $2 billion, he'll be happy to help. Hearing this, some actually shocked. Daimyo-sama owes you what? How the hell did you manage to get Daimyo-sama to be in debt with you? I didn't. My great-grandfather did. He lent some money to help build Konoha in the fire capital. Anyway, as I was saying, you don't have to worry about my thief. Haruno-san. Sake. Haruno may be a stubborn woman, but even she could say. When she was defeated, and she was in fact currently ranting in her head about her own idiocy. She had let her dislike for the boy interfere, and what should have come out as a concerned question now appeared as an insult and a mark of disrespect. She could only hope that the boy wouldn't hold it against her and that he still had a crush on her daughter that she could use. All right, I think our questions have been answered and we have a good idea of Wave's future situation. This meeting is adjourned. With a sigh, the Sandaime rose from his seat and made his way to the exit, giving an appreciative nod to Nar along the way. The clan heads began filing out of the room, looking at Naruto in a new light. Shikaku stopped near him. Good job, kid. That's one fine way to show you're a player. Nar smiled widely. I have no idea what you're talking about, Narama. Of course. Chuckle. Of course. The Naru left the room with an amused smile plastered on his face. Hai stopped next to Naruto, gaining the attention of the blonde. Ah, Hyuga-sama, shall we discuss my fleet around diner? It is quite late, most certainly. May I invite you to the Hyuga compound? I accept with pleasure. I heard a lot about the talent of the Hyuga cooks. Hai nodded and led him away from Team 7, Sasaki fuming once again at the importance his teammate was taking. He could not accept the fact that Naruto was now his equal both as a ninja and socially. Before he could still see himself as superior because the Uchiha were a noble clan. But now he learned that his teammate was a noble too. What next? His ancestors were daimyo. He couldn't accept the idea that he was equal in everything with someone he had despised all his life. He had to find a way to become superior again. If it wasn't through skills, then it would be through fame. The walk toward the Hyuga household was calm, even if the villagers were looking absolutely shocked to see the Hyuga clan head walking with the demon brat and talking to him like he was someone of equal stature. Their talk mainly revolved around the most recent political events, both national and international. Hai wanted to see just how politically aware the boy was, and he was absolutely shocked to see that Nar knew almost as much as him. When they arrived at the Hyuga manor, Nar was led to Hiyashi's office after he sent a branch member warned the cooks that he had a guest. Once in the office, Hiyashi went directly to the serious stuff. Well, Uzuki-sama, you are better informed than I thought. I heard your fleet is the fastest in existence. Is that true? According to my admiral, my trade fleet can go from hot water to tide in a bit under 3 days. Must I understand you wish for a quick mean to export your sake? Yes, it would give us more opportunities. It so happens that the Tide Daimyo is quite fond of our sake. Instating a trade route between outports and Tide could result in massive benefits on both our parts. Nar smiled. Even better, we could ask the Tide Daimyo to let us put up whirlpool commercial outposts allowing the entry of goods in his country tax-free. The idea of having more of your sake faster and cheaper will probably be enough to convince him. Hai nodded. This seems to be worked out. May I consider ourselves as commercial partners? Most certainly. Good. I am a little curious. What are your plans after Wave asks to join your thief? Do you know of the Susanna's Teeth archipelago? Yes. A very rich zone, but difficult to sail, littered with cliffs, sandbanks, and other treacherous obstacles. The main island, Foam, is rumored to be especially rich. But this cluster of islands is poor and in constant anarchy because of the pirate fleets that infest the smaller islands. I do recall that Water once tried to purge these islands only to lose their whole fleet. Yes, very accurate. There are no less than 200 pirate bases from a single dock for a lonely ship to entire harbors housing no less than 8 ships. They made prosperous life on Foam impossible. And Lightning's south coast is subjected to so many raids that they have to import goods through their neighbors of Frost. But even then, it isn't safe. And Susano's pirates often raid the trade routes. I just so happen to be currently using these trade routes a lot. You do realize your fleet will be attacked. Oh, but that's what I want. Once the pirates do this very mistake, I will have an international excuse to raid and conquer the archipelago. My admiral already took contact with no less than 12 fleets and convinced them to join over once the battle begins. My fleet also has detailed maps of the archipelago and the emplacement of almost all the pirate bases. Here failed to seize these islands. What makes you think you can? First, they didn't have inside help. Second, their ships were primitive at best, while the Whirlpool fleet is nimble and technologically advanced. And last, but not least, they weren't led by Sufuku Dairo. Hayashi's eyes widened. You have Dairo the Kraken under your orders. Yes, you could say he was honorbound to help since his father was Whirlpool's previous admiral. He really likes my plan, though I'll admit I wasn't the one to come up with it. Now Hayashi knew that Naruto would succeed. Dairo had been a famed and feared pirate captain and he had many nicknames. The Kraken, Blood Wave, the Fury of Whirlpool. Now he understood the last one. Then the implications dawned on him. You will have complete control of the sea trade on the eastern part of the elemental nations, and no one will be able to accuse you of anything. You will have simply defended yourself against pirate attacks and done the world a favor by removing them. Impressive. Yes. And since I am a prudent man or boy for now, my men have already contacted a few independent ninja clans to settle down on Foam and some of the biggest islands. I already have 3 clans interested in settling down on Foam, while 5 others want to build their fortresses in the islands, and a few others are debating the possibility. Hai quickly recalculated everything he knew of the boy. He had been told the blonde was the dead last with no talent as a shinobi, an idiot of untold proportion with no hope of redemption. Clearly the last part was wrong. So absolutely wrong. And while he didn't know about the part on his ninja talent, he did know that the boy was one devious leader. While looking like a benevolent man, he would gather the largest military and economical power in the elemental nations. He would have thousands of fighters ready to answer to him. And if they were at the level of those that fought in Wave, then he would become the most powerful individual in the world on a military point of view. That alone would make him indispensable to Konoha. As an added bonus, people probably won't pay too much attention to me. I mean, sure, taking over Susanna less than greater than S teeth will be impressive, but they'll probably think I don't have the manpower to hold it on my own. And they are right. That's why I'm recruiting clans far and wide. They'll think I'll simply retreat and let the pirates come back to the teeth. By the time they realize that, no, the pirates haven't come back, the islands will be well populated and fortified. If that wasn't enough, my shinobi will be known for their barriers, not their offensive power. Thus, they will think my troops just have sturdy defenses, and they won't see any interest in attacking someone that obviously isn't a threat. I see. But in the end, jealousy will appear, and they will try to destroy you like they did, Uzuio. Yes. But when that time comes, my forces will be at their peak, and I will have become an unavoidable part of the trade world. I will be irremovable. The only major countries that won't depend on me for their importations are Rock and Wind, and neither are in any position to threaten my possessions. I see. Tell me, since we are allies, Naruto smiled at the shift from trade partners to allies, could you use that hold over the Eastern Sea to help the Hyuga? Oh, you mean with your daughters? Well, most certainly. After all, I must stand by my allies, said Naruto with a smile. Hai smiled back, satisfied with the way things were going. And of course, the Hyuga will stand by your side, as should an ally. Naruto's smile widened, pleased with the way things were going. He now had support from the most powerful clan in Konoha, and he didn't even need to negotiate. A soft knock on the door was heard and Hayashi invited inside the person. The door slid open to reveal a beautiful woman with long indigo hair and byakugan with a tint of lavender. And a small girl with the same eyes but long brown hair. Husband, I heard we have a guest indeed. Yumaki-sama, meet my wife, Hyuga Hitomi, and my third child, Hyuga Hikari. Nar rose to his feet and bowed low to Hitomi and Hikari. It is my pleasure to meet you. Hitomi smiled kindly at the well-mannered boy while Hikari looked at him in awe. Sir, are you a ninja like father? Yes, but I'm a bit young, so I'm not as strong as him. 8 years old, Hikari looked at him in wonder. She had rarely seen people without the Byakugan, and it surprised her to see what normal eyes looked like. A branch member came in and informed them that the diner would soon be ready. Hai led them to the diner room, and Naruto was introduced to the 2 last members of the family. Utsuaki-sama, this is my brother, Zashi, Nar bowed respectfully. And my nephew, Nei. Nar looked at him. He was familiar. Washi say. Neji less than greater than S eyebrows shot up. Kitsun. Nar nodded with a smile and the Hyuga boy smiled as well. Ah, it is a pleasure to see you. Again. You graduated this year. Correct. The blonde nodded again. How is your team? Taka is the same as ever. Cold and globally uncaring. And Sakura is being her fangirl self. Neji smiled compassionately. You didn't have much luck being placed with both Taka and a fangirl. I suspect Hokage-sama placed us both here to push her to work more and hopefully grow up. The sad thing is that Taka needs to grow up too and doesn't seem to want to. He's still focused on avenging his clan. Not a bad objective, if you ask me, but he shouldn't live only for that. And then there's this superiority complex of his. Nodded in understanding. Meanwhile, the adults were looking at them in surprise as they talked like old friends. Maybe we should stop using our code name. Don't you think, Nar? Yes, you're right, Nei. By the way, how's your team? Eccentric to say the least. My sensei has made a guy. Did you hear of him? I heard of him and I heard him. Sadly, I am surprised your ears are still functioning. That man spends almost more time screaming than breathing. Everyone who knew who Guy chuckled in good humor. It has gotten worse. Guy-sensei managed to corrupt my male teammate and he now wears the same horrid green spandex and bowl cut. Lee, that's his name, screams nearly as much as sensei does. My female teammate and I came up with a technique that emulates earplugs with chakra alone, and we have become adept enough with it to raise it in a second. Ironically, this idiotic use of chakra raised our chakra control. Incredibly, said Nei with an amused smile. Tenten was quite astounded when she saw the results. Wait, your other teammate is Tenten, brown-haired girl with a love for weapons. You know her. Yeah, we have a common interest. Fu and Jutsu. Hiyashi perked up, listening more intently. You are interested in Fu and Jutsu. Yes, partly because it's fun and partly because of a family tradition. Compared to Whirlpool's old seal library, what we have in Konoha is absolutely miserable. I heard that my ancestors were capable of using seals in battle and not just exploding tags. I heard they had seals that could emulate Enjutsu. That is impressive. Yes, but think a bit farther. What would happen if you were to combine seals creating elemental chakra? Let's say earth and water. Every adult's eyes widened. Moken murmured Hiyashi in shock. Nar smirked. Yes, with enough work, I may be able to recreate the techniques of the Shadaime Hokage through Fujutsu, but it will be in a long time. Right now, I'm still trying to figure out how to do even a simple chakra nature conversion seal. Apparently, changing the nature of your chakra is hell, even with seals helping along the way. It would be easier with a neutral chakra, but I don't think that exists. Hai blinked and looked at his brother. During the conversation, They had taken seats around the table, but they kept listening to the two youth, but it looked like it may be a good time to place a word. Naruto-sama, if it helps you, I heard Jiraiya-sama speaking once of Sage Chakra. He said that natural energy made all elemental techniques equally easy because it wasn't attuned to any particular element. Nar stopped and looked at Hiashi wide-eyed. That's it. If I can harness natural energy, I can hope to actually make progress. Thank you, Hiashi. Sama. Hiashi nodded. At this moment, the doors of the kitchen opened and dishes were disposed on the table. The diner was mostly Nae and Nar talking about what they had done in their career. And once Hikari had left the table to go rest, they talked about Naruto's plans. Once he had finished explaining his plan, he looked at the people around the table and quite enjoyed their shocked expressions. I knew you were devious, said Neji. But I didn't know it was to this extent. Why, thank you. I worked hard to be like that, answered Nar with a cheeky grin. Does Danzo-sama know all this? Why bother the old man? He is busy with other things. Besides, I don't really need his approval. It's not like I'll start a war. Lightning will even have to thank me for removing the pirates harassing their south coast, said Nar with a smirk. Neji smirked as much. And what do you plan to ask thanks? Oh, I think you have a good idea of who I'll ask for, answered Naruto with a smile. A week later, Team 7 was waiting for their teacher at their meeting point. It was a peaceful morning. Nothing was out of the ordinary. The sky was clear and the air was warm. In a flutter of swirling leaves, Kakashi appeared, but he didn't look too pleased. All right, who did what? I just received a convocation to the Hokage office for our whole squad. Sasaki and Sakura both looked at Nar. Don't look at me like that. I stopped making pranks when I became serious. With a sigh, Kakashi signaled them to follow him. They made their way to the Hokage office in silence with Sasaki and Sakura occasionally glaring at Naruto, much to his irritation. When they arrived at the secretary's desk, she pointed at the door. Kakashi knocked on the door and instead of the angered voice he expected, the Sandaime calmly told him to come in. Kakashi led his squad inside and instead of an IATE old man, he saw an interested Kage and one Hyuga Hiashi. Kakashi stood on the right of the Hokage, curious as to why he was in the same room as Hyuga Hiashi. Team 7, Hiashi-san requested your presence, though he wanted to wait until you were here to explain his reasons. Thank you for your patience, Hokage-sama, said Hiashi, bowing to his leader, and then turning to the team. The reason I requested your team's presence is because Naruto-san and I have some business in Tide. However, as a genin, he does not have the same flexibility in schedule me and my fellow jonin benefit from. For this reason, I wish to hire your team for an escort mission to Tide. We may be gone from 2 weeks to 2 whole months, depending on how well the negotiations go. At my demand, and to compensate for the interruption of your schedules, I paid for an A- rank, even though it is classified C rank. Is this acceptable? Naruto and Kakashi were smiling widely. Sakura was contemplating new ways to tempt Sasaki on Tide's famous beaches with some bikini. And the Uchiha was fuming at the training time lost. Kakashi of course accepted readily, always ready for some paid vacation. Hiashi nodded satisfied. Hiashi-san, if I may, said Nar, surprising everyone with the choice of suffix. Could we make a detour to Whirlpool? We will visit a daimyo. Presenting him with a gift would put him in better dispositions. What gift do you have in mind? Maybe an ornate bow. I heard he was quite fond of hunting. Hiashi nodded appreciatively. That would be a fine gift. Excellent. I will warn my men. The bow should be ready in 2 days and a ship should be waiting for us in Wave in 1. That will give me the occasion to see how Wave is doing and to finally visit Whirlpool if only a little. When shall we leave, Kakashi? Would it be acceptable for us to leave in an hour? Certainly, Hiyashi-sama. Madam will go prepare at once. Unless, of course, they took my advice and prepared a ready-to-go pack, asked Kakashi, looking curiously over his students. Sasaki grumbled, but nodded. Sakura nodded as well, relieved she had taken the advice, and Naruto got a scroll out. Dobi were supposed to have a pack, not some paper, said Sasaki with a smirk. Then he remembered just what you could hide in a scroll. Nar calmly unrolled his scroll and began unsealing his supplies. To everyone's shock, he had sealed inside 5 tents, 10 spares of clothes, 2 months of ration bars, a full bed sheets included, a hefty sum of money, cooking wares, fishing and hunting equipment, cloaks for hot and cold climates, 5 spare staves, 12 pairs of shoes, including some for extreme climates, a repair kit to take care of his equipment, an unknown but very high number of spare shuriken and kunai trap parts, a good supply of scrolls of all sizes, inks, and brushes. All right, enough. Nar, seal all these things back in. My office isn't that big. Kakashi looked in pure disbelief as his student resealed all his things into the scroll. A question popped in his mind, and he felt he would soon be both very happy and very shocked. Nar, you didn't unseal any water. It's because the 3 months of water I've sealed wouldn't fit in the office. Kakashi's hunch proved to be true. So basically, you have enough supply in this scroll to ensure the team's survival in any situation. Yep, I also got enough meds to set up a field hospital if need be. Took me some time and a lot of money to gather all that, but I think it was worth it indeed. It's good to know that you're prepared, but it's not a reason to completely rely on you. I expect everyone to have their pack ready. Now, go prepare and gather at the east gate as soon as you're ready. The team left the building quickly to take their packs while Naruto calmly walked with Hiyashi to the gate. 15 minutes later, they were taken to the trees after Naruto sent a message to Whirlpool through his scroll. They reached Wave a day and a half later. Seeing the bridge, Hiyashi stopped a moment. The Great Whirlpool Bridge. Impressive. A great arch bearing the name of the bridge had been built above the road and also housed a guardhouse. From inside, Minamoto Tamo emerged along with a squad of 5 samurai. The black-haired woman bowed low in front of her superior. Naruto-sama, Hiyashi-sama. A small storm slowed the ship. It should arrive in the late afternoon. When Daimo-sama learned that you were coming, he invited you to his palace to share a lunch with him. Well, we shouldn't keep a daimo waiting. Don't you think so, Hiyashi-san asked Nar with a big smile. Most certainly, answered Hiyashi with a smirk. This kind of interactions thoroughly spooked Kakashi. Probably because they acted like they were great friends. Quickly, the group made its way to the do less than greater than S palace and shared a lunch with Suna. During the meal, Nar asked many questions about how Wave was doing and was quite pleased with the answers in more than one way. Suna was holding up the best he could, but he wasn't an administrator. Far from that, and they learned to Naruto's satisfaction that they had decided to consult the people on whether or not they should remain independent. The results would be known in about a month. After lunch, Nar and Hiyashi went to inspect the Wave garrison, and Nar was very pleased to see that some of the locals had enrolled themselves in an effort to have a competent force to defend the country should Whirlpool leave. The newly formed militia was learning at a good pace, something highly satisfying. Once the visit of the Whirlpool HQ was finished, a messenger came and told Nar that his ship was waiting in the harbor. So, the group began its trek to the port. Sasaki was once again irritated. Seeing his teammates' power constantly was annoying at best and downright infuriating most of the time, and this was no exception, but he hadn't seen the worst yet. When they reached the harbor, A collective jaw drop happened. Even Naruto was shocked. In the middle of the relatively big harbor, there was a lone ship. It had probably once been an oatbun, but now it was more of a floating palace. The bow was made of two serpentine dragons with their whiskers intertwined, holding together onto a pearl, the wooden statues being covered in gold. A small building followed on about a quarter of the ship, then a courtyard with a small garden, and finally from the middle of the ship to the stern, a palace fashioned to resemble the castles of old stood. And, standing smugly near the pier, was Dairo wearing a dark blue kimono bearing the crest of Whirlpool. The group slowly closed the distance, admiring the ship all along. Once they were close enough, Dairo began walking toward them, a bright triumphant smile on his face as he bowed in front of Nar. Nar-sama, this ship is the pride of Whirlpool. I hope it is to your liking and good enough for a diplomatic mission, said the admiral with mirth in his voice. Nar kept his gaze on the ship, still in awe. It will be perfect. Dairo. Absolutely perfect. It is truly impressive. When can we leave? As soon as you request it. Good. Then we'll leave as soon as we embark. Quickly. The group embarked and the ship began moving. To everyone's surprise, it moved very fast for its size. Hi. Curious turned to the captain. Dairo-san. I am no naval expert, but I am fairly certain a ship of this size isn't supposed to move at this speed. You are right. At Hiyashi-sama. However, I made a few interesting discoveries during my youth, including an old device transforming ambient chakra into energy. Once I had a good idea of how it worked, I managed to recreate it and linked it to the engines. Now, Whirlpool has the strongest and fastest fleet. Hai nodded, accepting the answer. The ride was calm, and the next day they reached Whirlpool Island, more specifically the southern port. The city was growing nicely and many construction sites were visible, indicating that the island was indeed doing well. When they landed, they were welcomed by Masahiro and a full platoon of samurai that escorted them to a mansion that had been established in case Nar decided to visit. Of course, Nar regretted greatly that he couldn't visit his lands like he wanted, but he couldn't really stay too long if they wanted to be on time for the meeting with the daimyo. They left Whirlpool the next morning with the ornamented bow. The travel to Tide was a calm one. Sasaki would stay in his quarters and brood passionately. Sakura would try to infiltrate said quarters and Nar enjoyed the anomaly that was the small garden on the bridge. How that thing was kept healthy, he would never know. But he certainly didn't complain. Occasionally, one of the three phone making up the escort would come close enough that he could wave at the crew. When they reached the harbor of Tide's capital, they saw that an official delegation was waiting for them and looked positively gobs make it at the ship. Nar smirked. Yes, dream _ just there. Ooh, this is the best. Ah, I couldn't agree more, sister. Yes. Oh, your hands feel so good. Hey, I try my best. I don't know what's better. Your hands are the fact there's two of you. Ooh, yeah, it's nice and all, but our backs are relaxed enough. How about taking care of our front boys? Nar awoke in his room in Tide with one very hard problem. Those vixens. Sigh. I wish they were real. 3 weeks later they were leaving the country. The Tide daimyo had quickly agreed to the creation of Whirlpool trade outposts since it would be beneficial for the economy of the country. But the details had taken some time to be discussed. A clan of chakra-using sailors originated from Wind Country. The Kazuzio had been selected by Naruto to oversee the construction of the outposts. The Kazuzio had a respectably good fleet, but they were choked by the competition in wind. So, this new position was a godsend for them. The fact that they trained in Enjutsu ensured that their ships and outposts would be well defended. While they were in Tide, The Hokage had sent a message to them telling them to wait in Wave to see what the people decided to do regarding the future of the country. Of course, Naruto was thrilled. However, when he finally reached Wave, a little surprise was waiting for him on the docks. Once they walked down the pier, they were surprised to see a group of Okami talking with a group of light blue-haired ninja. The Okami seemed extremely friendly towards the other ninja, something that put Naruto slightly at ease. He noticed Okami Uzumo talking to a tall man with spiky electric blue hair, very dark blue pants, and a matching shirt, plated fingerless gloves and shinobi combat boots. He had 2 ninjutsu on his back with their sheath crossed and bore 2 katana on his side in a samurai fashion. He had a kunai holster on his right leg and a pouch on his back on the same side. Interestingly, he seemed to have a birthmark tattoo in the form of crossed lightning bolts on the cheek Naruto could see. Apparently, Amo and the man were talking quite happily and comparing batches of photo. If the silly grins and happy laughs were anything to go by, they were talking about their children. Good family. Men are easy to deal with. You give them a place where their family is safe and they're happy. Their appearance seems familiar, but I can't seem to remember from where. Amo finally noticed the approaching group and signaled his friend. Both began to put the photos back into their wallets and Naruto saw a few happy teens on said photos, confirming his theory. When they were close enough, Amo and the man bowed. Naruto, absent-mindedly, noticing that the birthmark seemed to be present on both of the man's cheeks and that he had yellow eyes with a ring of blue around the pupil. Another thing he noticed was the X-shaped scar sitting in the middle of his face. Nar-sama, it is a pleasure to see you. Likewise, Amo-san said Nar, nodding his head. He then smiled at the blue-haired man. And you are? I am Rizatsu Riro, head of the Rizatsu clan. Whoa, wait a minute. The Rizatsu clan. You mean the clan that worked with mine to create the Sword of the Nadine? The man nodded with a smile. I am happy to see that the old alliance was not forgotten. I have come here to request your help. Certainly, I will be happy to help my clan's allies. Thank you. Since you are from Konoha, you know full well of Kumo less than greater than S hunt for bloodlines. Correct. Yes, I do. Well, it may look like it stopped, but inside the borders of lightning, it is still going strong, said Rorero gravely. My clan has always been one of their prime targets. And now that they can't try to capture bloodlines from other countries, they hunt down the bloodline clans of lightning with even more ferocity. We have lived in hiding for a long time, but they are closing in. We need a way out. When we heard that the Uzumaki were alive and that whirlpool was being rebuilt, we decided to contact you. My clan asks for asylum and protection. Please help us in our time of need. Rorero bowed low once he finished. Stand up. Where is your clan currently? Ko-san was kind enough to let us stay in Whirlpool for the time being. We couldn't stay in Lightning any longer without being discovered, and we don't have the might to face Kumo. I see. Well, I'll be happy to offer you asylum on my lands. But if you do settle down in my thief, then you'll have to wear Konoha headbands and flak jackets. Also, I may require a small relocation soon, depending on Wave's choice. Thank you. I trust we will be as far away from lightning as we can. Of course, it was at this moment that Sasaki, fed up with seeing his teammate gain power while he did nothing, decided to speak up. If it is a safe place away from lightning that you seek, I can offer you far better. You could settle in my lands in the south of Fire Country, as far away from lightning as you can get, said Sasaki with a smirk, causing Naruto to scowl. But before the blonde could warn his potential ally against the Uchiha, said man beat him to the punch. I am afraid not, Uchiha-san. All the vassal clans of the Uchiha, such as the Hamagawa clan, whose lands you offer us, have at one point or another been forced to integrate your clan. On the other hand, the Uzumaki were known for treating their vassals with honor and respect. For this reason, we chose the Uzumaki, answered Raro calmly, making the Uzumaki smile in satisfaction and the Uchiha growl in annoyance. Now that this is covered, said Nar, let's less than greater than go to the Whirlpool HQ. I would like to know more about your clan Ro-san. A week had passed and the governing body of WAVE had requested Naruto's presence at the palace. Of course, Naruto had hurried over there, escorted by Okami Izumo, Ryotsu Riro, and Minamoto Tamo. As he reached the throne room, he felt thrilled. He knew what was coming. The officials from all of the main settlements of WAVE were present, and all seemed happy. Suna looked impatient, like he was 3 phrases away from his liberation, which was probably true. Bowing, Nar and his subordinates seated themselves. Tazuna cleared his throat and began speaking. Uzumaki Nar, Lord of Whirlpool, it has been decided by the people of WAVE that independence was not as important as safety. Your troops have shown strength and kept us safe in our darkest hours, freeing us from 2 tyrants. WAVE wishes to entrust the future of this land and its inhabitants into your hands. Do you accept? It is an honor. I accept and will strive to make WAVE a better place and ensure all of its children are fed and cared for. Then I bow to you, my lord, said Tazuna as he along with all the officials bowed to the floor. May WAVE prosper under your guidance. Nar rose to his feet satisfied with the way his plan had gone. Rise first. The Rizatsu clan will come from Whirlpool and settle down in WAVE with Rizatsuero appointed as central administrator of WAVE and head of the ninja military if any are trained in WAVE. Minamoto Tamo is hereby appointed as head of the Samurai Corps of Whirlpool in WAVE. Tazuna-san, I will require your services in the future. I'll send you the specificities for some bridges, and I would appreciate it if you could look them over and see if you can build them, and if you can prepare a few first batches of plans before you are shown the place of construction. That I can do, man. Am I happy to go back to bridges? Tuna sighed in relief. Nar smirked amusedly. I have no doubt you are. Now, WAVE will undergo a heavy transformation due to its geographical situation. It has potential to become a major trade hub, something I do plan to turn WAVE into, especially now that trade outposts are being established in Tide. Expect heavy investments in the island's economy soon. All the mayors had grins when they heard that investments meant work. Work meant the island would be back on its feet quicker. And if WAVE indeed became a trading hub, then they never would have to worry about the next meal ever again. Rorero was glad to have a new home far enough from lightning, but still close enough to his new friend, Izumo. And Naruto was happy that his plan was a success. The next day, the Leaf team and Hiyashi departed from WAVE to inform the Konoha Council of what transpired in WAVE. And once again, a good chunk of WAVE's population had come to see them off. The WAVE division in its entirety stood at attention, proudly displaying their light blue armor marked with the crest of Whirlpool, WAVE's emblem just below it. There were over 100 recruits. Not bad if you asked Nar. And while they still had a long way to go, they were determined. Nar gave a small speech, causing the crowd to cheer, and they were off. 5 months since graduation and he had already extended his thief by a good 50%, added a new ninja clan to his ranks along with a complete fleet and established trade outposts that would guarantee his holdover trade in the Eastern Sea. Kami-sama, it's good to be me. A week later, they reached Konoha and went to the Hokage. Considering the nature of both the mission and the intel they brought with them, the debriefing was made in front of the council. Once the group entered the room, Hiyashi went to his seat calmly and looked over the council. The clan heads seemed completely bored. They had already guessed what happened, so they didn't really want to bother themselves, but that was the procedure. The civilians, on the other hand, were curious and wanted to know how the trip would affect trade in the region. The Sandaime came into the room and sat on his chair. Very well. This will be a short meeting. I have much to do, so I don't have time for hours of discussions. What are the results of the trip? Did the Tide Daimyo agree? Hai nodded. Discussing the details took some time, but the Tide Daimyo agreed. Whirlpool commercial outposts are currently being built along Tide's northern coast. I see. Naruto, who did you recruit to take care of these outposts? Asked the WIZD leader. The blonde smiled. The Kazuzio clan, formerly of Wind. They had little to no ties with Suna, thus ensuring I wouldn't have to deal with spies, and I got them out of a difficult situation, thus earning their loyalty. I talked with them. They are sailors, and even though they train a bit in Enjutsu, they don't lie much. They are honest and loyal to Whirlpool. Hai nodded, satisfied with the answer. Good. Now what of Wave? They decided to integrate the thief of Whirlpool. Was Naruto less than greater than answer? Uzuaki-sama said Sake Haruno. Gaining the attention of the whole room. Surely managing all these trade routes must be difficult. Konoha's Mercantile Guild would be happy to lend you its services and experience. May I invite you for dinner to discuss the agreement, said the Pinkett with a charming smile. But it was in vain. I'm afraid that will not be possible. Haruno-san said apologetically, as you said during the last meeting where we attended. My thief is still recovering. So we need all the benefits to help Whirlpool and now Wave. As for the diner, it would have been with pleasure, but I have errands I must run, answered Naruto with a polite smile. Sake nodded her acceptance of the answer, not that she had much choice. The fact that he threw her words back in her face wasn't pleasant. Far from that. All right. Is everything covered? Asked the Hokage. Good. Team 7, report to my office tomorrow. I know I'm asking a lot out of your team, but you are my best genin team, and I need you on a special mission. Hai then rose to his feet and left. Sasaki smirked, feeling his talents were finally recognized. Sakura smiled proudly at being part of such a team. Kakashi simply shrugged it off, but Nar couldn't help but feel the compliment. While honest, was there to keep them off his back. With a shrug, he left the room and went to his apartment. Note to self, find a new flat. The next day, the team gathered in front of the Hogue Secretary's desk, waiting to be all present before going in. Once the last of them arrived, Kakashi nodded to the secretary, who told the Hokage through the interphone they didn't have to wait long before being sent in. Standing in front of their leader, they wondered what kind of mission he could have assigned them. Hai looked over them, reconsidering one last time his choice before nodding in approval. Team 7, you are here for a mission of the utmost importance. As you know, our relations with Kumo are strained. Because of that, the Daimyo of Hot Water and Frost worry. They know that should a war between the Leaf and the Cloud break out, their countries would be the battlefield. Because of this, they have tried for a long time to pacify our relations with Kumo. Recently, they requested a joint C rank. Frost will hire a team from Kumo, while our client is Hot Water. Here looked at the ninja before him. They all stood at attention, even if the female part of the squad didn't really give a professional impression. I selected your team for this mission. One of the reasons is that it concerns one of you, said the Sandaime while looking at Nar. Said Blonde smiled wickedly. So the pirates made their move. Huh. Serbi nodded, not surprised in the least that Nar expected that. You will meet the Kumo team in a port town in Hot Water near the border with Frost. Your first objective is the elimination of a raiding party originated from the Susanoo's Teeth Archipelago in cooperation with the team from Kumo. Your secondary objective is to learn the current status of the Hyuga sisters. Once the pirates have been eliminated, you will escort the Kumo team to Konoha. They have been enlisted for the Chunin exams. Guy's team will accompany you on the way and back. They have a mission of their own. You will choose the rendezvous point with them. Hai took a scroll on his desk and threw it to Kakashi, who caught it effortlessly. Both daimyo will be there to welcome your teams. I expect you to be on your best behavior. If you can wound Kumo less than greater than S image, but not at the cost of ours. Show them your level. Don't forget to mention that you'll take part in the Chunin exams. Hopefully, it will demoralize them and they'll give up. Any questions? Sakura raised her hand. Who did the pirates attack? A trade ship from Whirlpool. Anything else? No one reacted this time. Good. You leave in an hour at the North Gate. Pack for a month at least. Dismissed. Nar decided to take the scenic view to the North Gate, stopping at a small stand to grab a few pastries. On his way to the gate, he crossed road with Tenten. Yo, Tenten. The bun-haired girl turned when her name was called and smiled warmly. Nar, good to see you. It's been a while. Where were you? You're not avoiding me, are you? Asked Tenten in a mock-hurt tone. No, I just had my plate full. I just came back yesterday from a business trip to Tide, with a stop at Wave. By the way, they asked to join Whirlpool. Oh, that's good. So, how's the part about Susanoo's Teeth going? Any move from the pirates? Yep, that's why we're moving to hot water. You know, that idea of yours is probably the craziest thing I've ever tried. Oh, come on. I already told you the plan will work. I know. It's just that it will be the craziest thing I've done so far. But Dairo absolutely loves it. He was ready to come to Konoha and adopt you for thinking of it. Tenten snorted. Sounds like a fun guy. He is a bit crazed and a tad bit on the cliché side of the sailor, but he does his job just fine. Besides, he's a badass. Tell me about it. Sinking a quarter of Kiri's fleet is no small feat. Anyway, Guy-sensei told us that your mission was ultra important. What is it? A co-op mission with Kumo. We'll try to gather intel on nay less than greater than S cousins and demoralize the Kumo team. Oh, and I'll probably get to see 2 other daimyo, treating me like I'm Kami-sama herself. It's going to be a fun mission. Tisk Plodens, I bet you get a kick out of it. Yep, I do. What can I say? Here I'm lower than dirt, but out there I'm practically royalty. Sometimes I wonder if I shouldn't go to Whirlpool once I've made Chunin just to be left in peace. Matt, I doubt Konoha would allow it. Why? I'll tell you later. Let's just say that I had a reason to choose to be Kitsum. Okay, tell me when you're ready. Speaking of the gauntlet, Danzo-sama sent me another request for weapons. I can't understand why he keeps asking me to make his weapons. I mean, I'm just a beginner. Maybe that's because I was trained in the gauntlet. Yeah, more like because you're a genius with a forge hammer, thought Nar. So, I heard from Nei that you developed some kind of chakra earplug. You met Neji. He's Hiyashi's nephew. I saw him during a diner at the Hyuga compound just before the business trip. Oh, okay. I would have expected Sensei and Lee to be there. Already, mumbled Tenten as the gate came into view. They probably went on a few laps around the village like they always scream about. Yeah, probably. They continued chatting idly, Neji joining them when he arrived. When Sasaki came to the gate, he pointedly ignored them despite the polite acknowledgement Neji sent his way, irked that everything seemed to revolve around his teammate lately. Then came Sakura, who went to sit next to the Uchiha, daydreaming as usual, and Kakashi, who simply stood there reading his book. Then, dynamic entry. A green blur appeared, flying towards Kakashi, who simply grabbed its ankle and threw it away. Only then did the silver-haired man's gaze left his book. Looking at the blur, who once stopped, revealed itself to be Guy. Kakashi smiled. Did you say something, Guy? The green beast laughed boisterously and began sprouting nonsense about youth and whatever, causing Naruto to tune him out. Looking around, he saw the last member of Team Guy, the SP and X-clad Rock Lee, coming towards them. Greetings. I am Rock Lee. May I ask your name? Yusuzu Maki Nar. Broody is Uchiha Sasaki and Pinky is Haruno Sakura. Lee looked at Sakura and gulped as a blush came to his face. Such an angel, he muttered. No, she's not, interrupted Naruto flatly. Seeing the revolted face Lee was giving him, Nar spoke again before the green genin could. Look, I've been in her class for a long time. Even had a crush on her. She just beat me up at every turn because she considered I was in the way of her one true love, which by the way is Broody here. She's not an angel. She's a fangirl. Lee still looked revolted. If you had gotten to know her, I'm sure she wouldn't have hit you. That's the thing. I wanted to get to know her. If only to have a friend, she just kept hitting me. But if you want to try, be my guest, said Nar, looking away from Lee, thus signifying he had nothing else to say. Lee left in a huff and approached Sakura. After an overly enthusiastic introduction and a glare from Sasaki, he received a fist to the face courtesy of Sakura along with a scream of, "Leave me alone, you freak." Lee, depressed and nursing his cheek, went back to the group. Told you, said Nar. Suddenly, a fire lit in Lee's eyes. Yush, it matters not. I shall train more and show her my strength, and she shall fall for me. Nar looked at him for a second before sighing while all gleefully admit Sakura is shallow. I don't think she's that shallow. Lee's face began to distort in anger. How dare you talk of her like that? She's not. Oh, really? Then why did she hit you without getting to know you? She doesn't do that to everyone. She just decided to judge you based on your looks and attitude without getting to know you. If that isn't a shallow behavior, then tell me what is. Lee tried to argue, but nothing came to his mind. With a frown, he remained silent. Then a hand fell on his shoulder, a brightly smiling Guy behind him. Worry not, my student. Pour your heartache in training, and you shall swoon her with your strength. Lee immediately followed his teacher and they began some sort of contest to be the most ridiculous possible with sunset and rivers of tears. Nar looked at it blankly before turning to Kakashi. He's single, isn't he? Kakashi nodded. I see. Sigh. It's less than greater than going to be a long trip. The trip was mostly calm, even if there was a rising tension between Naruto and Lee. And now on the last night they would spend in the same campsite, it was at its peak. Lee kept sending dark glares to Nar and it was getting on the blonde's nerves. The fact that Nae and Tenten seemed to agree with the Foxy team certainly didn't help. The tension was such that Guy and Kakashi decided to get involved. Once dinner was eaten, they signaled their teams to sit around the fire. All right, began Kakashi. There seems to been a bit of tension in the air. Nar snorted, but his teacher ignored it. And it would be better if the situation was resolved. Indeed, such youthful atmosphere is detrimental to the missions. Supplied Guy. Nar Lee, may you explain the reasons of this dispute? I told him a few things. He didn't like it, said Gnarly. He was in a sour mood and definitely didn't want this to keep going. What? You belittle the beauty and mind of my beautiful cherry blossom. Bellowed Lee. Sakura ticked off, rose to her feet, and sledgehammered Lee's face into the ground via her fist. I told you to leave me the alone, you freak. She then turned to Nar, seething. As for you, the blonde's eyes met hers and flashed red as he snapped. What? Sakura nervous stepped back and returned to her seat muttering a nothing fearfully. Good. Now Lee-san, I never said she was ugly or stupid. I said she's a fangirl. It's her personality I criticized. Lee springing back to his feet glared angrily and Nar. You have no right to do so. You don't know her yet you behave so unearthly too. Shut the hell up. Nar was now beyond pissed and his eyes flashed red every few seconds to the increasing worry of the Jonin. I'm tired of your childish behavior. I've known that since childhood. Spent 5 years in her class. I know her more than you do. It pisses you off that I don't act like like you. Tough luck. I'm a feudal lord. The tiniest of my mistakes can end hundreds of lives and destroy thousands. I don't have the luxury of being stupid. Nar paused to breathe deeply and calm down, his eyes stopping to flash red. Now, I easily admit I may be biased on matters that pertain to Haruno. But you are falling for her looks without knowing her. And when I told you things as I saw them, instead of taking them into account, you immediately denied them and decided that you, who barely knew her, if at all, knew better than me, who spent a few years knowing her, and then proceeded to berate me. Even more, you refused to acknowledge the numerous evidences, namely the hits, that I was right, and blamed the whole situation on me, something that makes me want to cave your face in. If you don't want to grow up, it's not my problem. Just stay away from me. With that, Nar rose to his feet and jumped to a high branch. I'll take first watch. Lee looked at Naruto's back, gobsmacked. A genin 1 year, his junior had just bearded him and called him childish. And even though he wanted to deny it, Nar had raised a few good points. Silently, he made his way to his tent, mulling over what was said. Guy on his part was shocked with the way Naruto had talked, and he was quite surprised to learn that Naruto was a feudal lord. Looking at Kakashi, he spoke dryly. I didn't recall any report mentioning Nar being so youthful. Let's say the Mizuki incident awoke a part of him that knows life isn't all games and laugh was the Jonin's answer. Nar was standing in sewers. He didn't know why and it bothered him. He remembered standing guard with Nei, then waking Sakura and Tenten to take the second watch before going to rest in his tent. Then he found himself in this sewer. Looking around carefully, he notices several hallways. Trying to peer into the darkness, images come to his mind, most too vague to be understood. Hey, finally came to visit. Turning around, Nar is surprised to see himself, but more ethereal, almost see-through. Kitsum, yep, welcome in the mindscape. Fluffy want to talk to you. So, he pulled you here. I wish I could do that, too, though. Anyway, it's over there. Nar followed his incent image and reached a gigantic room with a mighty cage. The QB clearly visible behind the bars. He expected a demented demon of destruction constantly screaming for blood. But what he saw was a calm fox, if a bit big, seemingly pondering something. Leveling his gaze on Nar, the QB seemed to assess him while the blonde did the same. You're not what I expected. I thought you'd be less calm. That is to be expected, answered the fox in his deep rumbling voice. And until a few hours ago, you'd have been right. Nar raised an eyebrow in curiosity. When the Yandaime sealed me in you, he took away half of my chakra, the yin part, thus resulting in a weakening of my mind and causing me to more easily succumb to my beastly instincts. I became more violent, more prone to mindless destruction. Considering you attacked Konoha for fun, I'm not sure you can be any more prone to mindless destruction. Oh, really? Chuckle. Tell me, boy, do you really think a fox of my size can sneak up on a village? No, I was sealed in your mother to be exact and was manipulated into attacking your village. I will explain more later. In the direction you are going, there are two, I don't know how to name them. They feel human but like a part of me at the same time. I always felt them but far away as if through a thick cloud, but now it is clearer. I feel the need to protect them, and not only because through them my yin chakra is regenerating. It is a strange feeling, a primal want I never felt before. Nar looked at the QB for a moment, trying to understand the possibilities. Just so I know, do you have a human form? No, I do not. Why this question? Well, you said they felt like part of you, but still human. So, I thought maybe you had children before being captured. Huey gave the idea a thought, considering it carefully. Maybe you were right. I remember two fools. They bore the mark of the cloud. They managed to steal some of my chakra. It may have affected them more deeply than I thought, and have affected their children in turn. Whoever they are, investigate this matter for me and I shall help you. And if they happen to be your children, we will see when we see them. Nar nodded, then turned to Kitsune. Since we're both here, maybe we should try and finish the merging. Kitsune nodded. Yugito stretched her back contentedly. She had the occasion to spend a good night of sleep in a very comfy bed for the first time in months. Since the formation of her team, the Rockage had done all he could to keep them out of Kumo, assigning them to C-rank missions as soon as he could. As a result, her team was without a doubt the best of Kumo, probably even better than some Chunin teams, and that was why they had been sent on this mission. She was glad they had arrived before the Konoha team. It gave them time to rest a bit before the mission. Rising to her feet, she went through her morning routine, enjoying the hot shower thoroughly before going down to the common area of the inn they were staying at. The daimyo had paid for the best inn of the town, something Yugo was grateful for. Luckily, this morning was relatively peaceful so far. That must mean Atsui hadn't gotten on Hanabi's nerves yet. As she entered the room, she witnessed the explosion. Team 7 jumped down from the roofs, landing in front of the inn they were supposed to meet the daimyo and Kumo team at. They were about to enter, but the door exploded. A blonde Kumo genin flying through it. Shut the hell up, you temperature-obsessed freak. A dark blue and cream blur then followed the down Genimon, revealing itself to be a girl with midnight hair held in a him cut. With a low ponytail falling from the back, fox ears, and a bushy tail, all of the same color. Interestingly, she didn't have any headband. Oh, and she was shaking the life out of the poor boy. If I hear you muttering the word hot even one more time, I will put so much pepper in your food that your tongue will turn black. Another girl, identical to the first, only with her hair straight, ran after her and tried to get her sister to release the almost knocked out blonde. Sister, we are here for a mission. We must be professional. I don't care. I can't stand that idiot anymore. I'm bordering on taking my showers cold out of spite. Girls. Both girls turned to the blonde woman who just emerged from the inn, looking absolutely pissed. First, you're supposed to act professionally, something you are not doing. Second, hitting your teammates is forbidden, no matter how annoying they can be. If it was allowed, Kami-sama, so help me, I would have beaten the living rap out of B. Third, don't get out without your headbands. And fourth, be grateful the Konoha team is not here. Can you imagine the image it would give of our village? Kakashi chose this moment to make their presence known within a hem. Yugito looked at them and dropped her head in defeat. Then a gobsmacked naked Nar managed to regain enough control over his mind to ask the question that was going through his mind for the last 5 minutes or so. Foxy ladies, what the heck are you doing out of my dreams? The two girls turned their gaze to Nar, revealing their very wide eyes to be by Ogden slightly shocking Kakashi. Then a smile overcame their features and they glumped Nar. Dream _ Yugo and Kakashi were both looking at this with wide eyes wondering what the heck was exactly going on. Sasaki smirked evilly, thinking of something to put Nar in difficulty. Dabi, care to explain why you know shinobi from an enemy village? A tick mark appeared on the forehead of one Uzumaki and two Hyuga, but Naruto answered nonetheless. Snorts _ if I was a spy, do you really think my contacts would be a couple of Gen and 2 Gen who were abducted in Konoha no less and who only dream of going back home? Added the one with the him cut. You didn't answer my question, Dobi. He spat smugly. Hinata had enough. She rose to her feet and planted herself in front of the Uchiha. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathed deeply, then reopened them while activating her Byakugan. Suddenly, Sasaki found breathing difficult and took hold of his throat. Are you sure that you are not the Dobi? The answer to your question lies in his first question. How? I do not know, but for many nights we shared our dreams. Now think a little bit. Do you really think a spy would have reacted this way? She then deactivated her Byakugan and the Uchiha began gulping air frantically. Sakura tried to help her crush while glaring hatefully at the retreating Hyuga. Wanting at least some payback on the _ in her opinion who unjustly in her opinion again attacked her Sasaki _ she tried to release killing intent. She smirked when she saw the Hyuga stop and begin to shake slightly. Sister, I'm afraid. I think a fly wants to kill me. Giggle. Sakura's eyes widened at the dismissal of her killing intent and realized the girl was in fact shaking with restrained laughter, which enraged her even more. Okay. What the hell was that? Asked Kakashi. That was Hinata Nei's patented glare, answered happily. The one with the him cut. She didn't glare anyone to death yet, but she's getting better at it. Kakashi's sweat dropped. All right, since we less than greater than LL work together, maybe we should introduce ourselves. I am Hideki Kakashi, Jonin of Konoha. Hinuchiya Sasaki grunted the Avenger while glaring at Hinata. Haruno Sakura said the pinkett in a cold tone while glaring at Hinata too. Said girl seemed to be about as bothered by the glares as she was with the rain, and it was a sunny day. Utsuaki Nar Genin of Konoha and Lord of Whirlpool at your service, said Nar with a bow and a charming smile at the Hyuga. Sisters is one, they sighed dralily. Sister is a prince, it keeps getting better and better. Quiet you two, you can flirt with him later. I am Nugo Elite Jonin of Kumogak and the poor woman supposed to contain these two little tornadoes of mischief, said the blonde while glaring playfully at the two girls who answered with a vulpine grin and a happy swish of their tails. My name is Atsui, said the blonde. And I'm the hottest guy in Kumo. Sweet. Now he's delusional, too. Like his obsession with hot wasn't enough. Hey, quiet. Go on. I am Haya Hinata. It is a pleasure to meet you, said the girl with the straight hair. Then she looked at Nar lovingly, blushing slightly. Especially you. The blonde blushed and smiled happily. I am Haug Hanab. Nice to meet you, said Hanab flatly, then a bit more excitedly. Now, can we take Dream _ to the hot springs? We got to get to know each other. What? Young lady, I hope this is a joke. Do you really expect me to let you two go alone in the hot springs with a boy you barely met? Yes, you face pal. Let me put it that way. I refuse to let you go alone to the hot springs with a boy you barely met. I'd ask to come along. Considering the state of the relations with Konoha, I have no doubt that Kakashi-san would. I don't mind, said Kakashi with an eye smile, causing Yugo to stop abruptly. Her mouth still open and slowly turned to him. What? She breathed in shock. I know Nar is a responsible young man and you can't exactly do anything to him without your country and village facing dire consequences. So I don't mind. Thanks, exclaimed Hanab. You're now officially a cool guy in my book. Kakashi-san come Hana dream _ the hot springs are over there. With a last disbelieving look at Kakashi, Yugito followed the three youth to the hot springs. There wasn't much talking done on the way, mostly the girls clinging to the boy with his arms wrapped around their waists. The owner of the hot ring was a bit surprised by their ears and tails, but not as much as the first time they had come here. What completely shocked him was the fact that they requested a pool where they could all go together. The man sent a jealous glare to Nar, wishing he was the one who would see Yugo. The two others were too young for him. Once they had their pool, they went to the changing room and saw a little problem. There was no separation. Hanabi was ready to undress then and there. And Hinata wasn't far behind. But Naruto's politeness surfaced at this moment, and he offered to wait near the pool until they were finished, thus earning some points in Yugito's book. Once everyone was in a towel, they settled in the spring. The sisters quickly pressing themselves against a blushing Naruto who was enjoying the skin contact. Over the course of 2 hours, they asked as many questions as they could about their clan, Konoha, and himself. Of course, Nar asked a few questions of his own, but he didn't really ask about Kumo, mainly because he had no intention of setting foot in there. Yugito assessed him carefully and was satisfied with what she saw. He was careful not to divulge any secret of his village, but was still answering truthfully to the girls. Taking advantage of pause in the conversation, Yugo talked for the first time. You said you are the Lord of Whirlpool. Aren't you a bit young? Nar turned his gaze to her and his eyes suddenly became arctic cold. I am afraid I am the last Uzumaki currently alive and aware of his legacy. Your village and Kiri did a thorough job in destroying my clan and land. Yugito winced. Sorry. It's okay. Considering the casualties you suffered in the assault, I'd be quite stupid to believe my clansmen didn't avenge themselves. Yugito nodded. How is your thief doing? Quite good. I'll soon be securely established as a major trading power with shinobi specializing in barriers. Yugo nodded and analyzed what was told. The kid had been way too relaxed concerning this information, meaning it was either common knowledge or what he wanted her to believe. I heard you took over a small country. That's less than greater than a lie. My samurai simply freed wave from a tyrannical tycoon. It was wave less than greater than choice to ask for integration, answered Nar indignantly. Your samurai, not your ninja militia against a bunch of thugs. No, my samurai are trained enough that they could eliminate those fools easily. Yugito nodded, noting that not once had he given any sign of lying. That meant he hadn't told them the whole truth. He was far too good a shinobi, from what she had seen, to simply be a benevolent boy. I also heard you had Dairo, the Kraken, under your orders. Don't you fear Kira's answer? Ah, yeah, Dairo kicked there while severely outnumbered and equipped with repurposed fishing ships. Right now, he has a complete war fleet. I'd like to see these fog suckers trying to attack me. The first whooping Dairo gave them would look like a peck compared to what he'd do to them now. Yuo nodded carefully. And what will you do about the ship that was attacked? I'll send a message to Dairo. Maybe he can clean up a few islands as an example for the other pirate groups. Yugito noted that he didn't say everything and filed this information for later. I see. Well, maybe we should return to the inn. The daimyo may have been busy today, but they should be done soon. Let's go. Once again, Naruto waited for the girls to be done before stepping in the changing room. Interestingly, while he was dressing, he heard Yugito forbidding Hanabi from using the Byakugan and said young woman saying that it was to make sure there wasn't any danger in a way. Too innocent voice. With a smirk, Naruto finished dressing. They then returned to the inn with Nar enjoying the jealousy of the teens his age that saw him with two hot fox ladies clinging to him. When they finally reached the inn, they saw that Atsui was on one side of the inn with Sasaki and Sakura on the other side, glaring at the lone blonde. In the middle, seating near a table, his face buried in his book, was Kakashi. The group went to sit with him, quickly joined by Atsui, who was sending envious glances to Nar. Kakashi then motioned his two other students to come nearer, something they did reluctantly. "All right," said Kakashi. "The daimyo of frost and hot water should arrive soon." They were busy for the day discussing a border problem. "We were hired for a joint mission, so try to at least look willing to cooperate, even if you don't like each other, okay?" Sasaki gave a grunt, and Sakura looked downright rebellious, but a quick glare from Kakashi silenced her before she could protest. Then the two teams made their way to the most luxurious part of the inn in the old-fashioned reception room inside. 8 cushions had been placed on the ground, allowing them to kneel there. Sakura, who never had to sit on a cushion before, tried to imitate the others, but with mitigated results in her heels and calf hurting like hell. On a side note, she wasn't the only one struggling. Atsui also seemed to have problems with this position. Surprisingly, Nar was completely unmoving and regal looking. They waited a few moments before the door opened and the two daimyo walked in. The frost daimyo was an old man whose hair and beard had probably once been a vibrant purple, but in his old age had turned a pale purple. His hair was short and spiky, kept under a hat with a metal plate bearing his country's symbol, akin to a headband. He had a mustache and a long beard, the two not being connected. He wore a purple kimono with light blue trimmings. The hot water daimyo was also an elderly man. He had black eyes, a gray mustache, and a strange headwear bearing his country's emblem. He wore dark shirt and pants and a sleeveless yellow jacket with red trimmings. The two daimyo sat side by side opposite to the two teams and took a moment to take in their appearance. They had been busy and didn't have time to meet any of the teams, so they were a bit surprised to see 2 fox girls, but it didn't stop them. "Greetings," said the frost daimyo. "We are glad to see both of your teams here and are most satisfied to see you ready to work together. Now, we would like to know who will take care of our mission," said the hot water daimyo. Kakashi eyes smiled to Yugo. "You got the most ladies on your team, so you go first." The Jinchūriki snorted in amusement. "I am Niuhido, elite jonin of Kumo and leader of Team White. I am Atsui, Jonin of Kumo. I am Hyuga Hinata, Jonin of Kumo. To my dismay, I am Hyuga Hanabi, Jonin of Kumo." Like my sis said, both daimyo looked a bit nervous now. The prospect of having a potential incident regarding the abducted Haga taking place in this town was far from comforting. Besides, the blonde genin from Konoha was raising all kind of alarms in the back of their minds. He looked far too confident. "I am Hideki Kakashi, elite jonin of Konoha and leader of Team 7, said Kakashi in his lazy voice. Hearing that the Haki Kakashi, the copycat ninja himself, was in this town with war material not even 5 meters from him made the daimyo exchange a worried glance. "I am Uchiha Sasaki, Jonin of Konoha and heir of the Uchiha clan," said Sasaki in his ever so arrogant voice. "I am Haruno Sakura, Jonin of Konoha and daughter of Haruno Sake, head of the Konoha Mercantile Guild." Sakura said while her mother's guild was well known it didn't really make any difference in the eyes of the daimyo, but she didn't know that I am Utsuaki Nar. At this both daimyo opened wide eyes. Genin of Konoha, heir of the Uzuaki clan and lord of Whirlpool. Now the daimyo looked like they wanted to bow but couldn't since they were the ones that hired him. Of course this only served to irk Sake further. "Utsumaki-sama," said the hot water daimyo nervously. "What a pleasure to welcome you here. Would you like a better place to stay at? I am sure the mayor wouldn't mind giving you free access to his mansion for the duration of your stay." "Nonsense. I am a ninja and you are my client. Don't worry, said Nar with a dazzling smile, putting both older men at ease. Now, may I know where the pirates who attacked my ship are? I would be delighted to have an occasion to explain to them exactly why messing with Whirlpool is a bad idea. The hot water daimyo collected a folder and took out a map of his country's coast. The attack happened here near the border with Frost. It already happened several times. If it is still the same pirate gang, then they will slowly move along my coast until they reach this small peninsula. From there, they will go into Susanna's teeth and disappear until the next raiding season. This kind of attacks has plagued our countries for the last decade, and no matter what we tried, we never managed to eliminate them. This is why we requested your team, Yugo-san, said the Frost Daimyo. I have heard that you have the two best trackers of Kumo in your team. We would have hired Jonin teams, but both villages declined, stating that pirates were not high enough priority targets to justify the allocation of a Jonin team. We were told that your respective teams are the best genin of your villages, so we place our hopes and trust in you. It is an honor, Dame Yosama, said Yugo, bowing. Dame Yosama, interjected Naruto. May I know how many crew members of my ship survived? That is what impresses us. Uzumaki-sama. No sailor of Whirlpool perished. It is the first time that a commercial crew drove off a pirate attack. Nar smiled proudly. Thank you for reassuring me. Dame Yosama. May we know in which port is the ship? I have no doubt that interviewing the crew might help our trackers, noted Nar. The daimyo nodded and told them the ship was in this very port. Awaiting them. Crew on the deck. Lord Uzumaki is on the ship. Sailors rushed from every part of the ship, quickly forming a line to salute their lord. The commercial ship was a junk ship 250 feet long and 90 feet wide with a dark blue batten sail. The swirl of Whirlpool sewn in bright red on it. Many imagined sailors as rugged, wearing ragged clothing, but those were wearing full GI pants and jacket in dark blue color, the crest of Whirlpool prominent on their back. At ease, Captain, said Nar Jovi. Don't worry, we won't stay long. I believe you were attacked by pirates. We were, my lord. All right, girls. What information do you need? Hinata stepped forward and bowed politely to the man. Good day, sir. Could you please tell us what type of ship attacked you, how many pirates there were, their tactics, overall equipment, and training, please? Certainly, young lady. Excuse me, said Sakura. Aren't you freaked out that some fox girl is talking to you? This, of course, got her a glare from Hinata, Hanabi, Yugo, Kakashi, and Nar. No, not really. You know, I've seen a squid man dancing atop the waters, so not much can surprise me. Now, the captain got a lot of surprised stares. Well, admittedly, I was drunk, but still, after that, you're hard-pressed to be surprised. Nar followed his teacher and teammates through the inn. They were going for a little team debrief. No one was fooled. No one would have been. So Kakashi didn't bother hiding the purpose of this meeting very well. They were going to discuss the Hyuga heiresses. Kakashi opened the door to the small conference room and motioned for them to sit while he placed seals to ensure privacy. Nar sat calmly on the left of his teacher's seat and waited for him to finish. Once that was done, the gay-haired man sat. Sasaki was on his right and Sakura right in front of him. So said the Jonin, what do you think we should do about these new developments? Asked Kakashi in a completely relaxed voice. What do you mean? Sensei asked Sakura, looking slightly lost. Perhaps Nar had overestimated her. Sakura, what do you know exactly about our relations with Kumo? Asked Nar. Well, we have a cold war with Kumo because they abducted 2 girls. And what name did the 2 girls on Kumo's team give? Sakura's eyes widened and her jaw dropped. These two are the— She slammed her head on the table. Damn it. How could I be so stupid? You were distracted, was Naruto's plain answer. Now, I think we should send a message to HQ to warn them and tell them to call off the bounty. I also think we should avoid intimidating them. Why? Asked Sasaki, a light frown on his face. It would show Kumo that we are not to be trifled with some intimidation. We show them how dangerous we are and then we force them into giving up these two. No, that would be counterproductive. The Rockage is, from what I heard, a very proud man. If we go around showing our muscle and try to intimidate them, his defiance will cause him to shut down and it will lead to trouble. What do you offer then? Asked Sasaki. The only reason I could see for Kumo to send them on this mission then to the Chunin exams would be to try to initiate negotiations. They're showing us that Hinata-chan and Hanabi-chan are safe and healthy and they're trying to make them Chunin. And what is a common assignation for Chunin with ties to another village? Diplomatic duties, said Sakura. They're trying to squeeze peace out of Konoha and shove their crime under the rug. She said with a scowl. Most probably, said Kakashi. Lazily. But thanks to this little guy here. He pointed at Nar. We have a way to put pressure on them. But for now, it is better to make it look like we're willing to let go. We're basically luring them into a trap, observed Sasaki. That would work, but as you said, the Rockage is a proud man. If we suddenly dump demands on him, he'll storm out of the room. Nice pun, Sasaki, said Nar. This is indeed a possibility, so we'll have to make it so he doesn't have a choice. Until now, the political power in Lightning simply didn't care. There was no impact on their incomes. Now, if any random civilian noble had control over the Eastern Sea, it wouldn't be too much of a problem. But a ninja, one whose clan was almost completely slaughtered by Kumo and who was allied to the Hyuga, that will worry the Lightning Daimyo and force him to act, said Sakura, her eyes widening. You plan to subtly threaten the Lightning Daimyo into forcing Kumo to give up the twins. That's not all, said Sasaki, looking at Naruto in a calculating way. You plan to take away Lightning's allies in Frost and Hot Water. When he noticed Sakura looking at him in surprise, he explained. Frost's economy is focused on trade. Should Nar decide to form a blockade, Frost would lose a tremendous amount of income. They'll have no choice but to choose Naruto over Lightning. If everything goes well, said Nar. Frost and Hot Water won't have to make this choice. Kakashi looked at his students with pride. He began to calmly write his message while listening to Nar and Sasaki as they explained to a shocked Sakura what a few trade outposts could do to the economy of the whole eastern part of the nations. The two teams were crouching in the shadows of a coastal forest, looking onto a pirate harbor built into a hidden creek. No one really came in this part of Hot Water country, and it was interestingly placed halfway along the coast. You could guess that this harbor was only used during the raiding season. Since most building looked to be in a mild state of disrepair, yet looked to be somewhat regularly used. In the harbor, 8 small junk ships were attached to makeshift docks. Ragdoll-looking men were walking in the open, singing quite badly, drinking songs, and quite evidently drunk. Hinata and Hanabi had taken a look at the records, marking on the map all the emplacement of all the towns and ships attacked, and noticed that sometimes the pirates seemed to go back, yet were still on time for a raid far lower on the coast. They had from this deduced that it was all a ploy to make people think they were attacked by a nomad fleet while they had a harbor hidden somewhere. From there they had tried to determine which part of the coast would be the most likely to house said hidden harbor. And considering what they were currently seeing, they had succeeded. Good job, girls, murmured Yugo. The twins only smiled in answer. Kakashi gave them an appreciative nod. Good. Now, How do we take care of them? Full in assault or poisoning of their supplies? I would personally favor the second option, said Nar. This harbor is quite a good location and would make a wonderful trade outpost, so I'd like to take the infrastructure, no matter how crappy, in a relatively good state. Do you only think about trade outposts? Asked Sasaki, annoyed. Of course, I don't. I also actively search for ways to make your life miserable, answered Naruto with a cheeky grin, causing the sisters to snicker and Yu-Gi-Oh to smirk. Of course, Sasaki and Sakura didn't share in the fun. Focus, said Kakashi. Poisoning also seems the best idea to me, but for other reasons. It would be the easiest way, but unless you stocked some poison in your scroll, Nar, we less than greater than LL have to go for the first solution. Are you me? Asked an incredulous Hanabi. Just on the way here, I saw a shitload of useful plants. 5 different brands for hemorrhagic poison, 3 neurotoxins, and at least 2 paralytics. And that's not counting the 3 taste suppressors or the 2 plants with pollens usable to make the poison airborne. Sakura looked at Hanabi with a disturbed expression. You are sick. No, I'm perfectly fine, but once I'm done, they will be sick to death. Maybe we should clarify the fields of specialty of our genin. Kakashi asked Yugo, making the blonde Jonin nod. Kakashi nodded to Sakura, prompting her to begin. All right, I specialize in uselessness and loud screeching, quipped Nar. Sakura clenched her fists in anger before talking through her teeth. In genjutsu and medical techniques. I specialize in enjutsu and kenjutsu, said Sasaki. And brooding, added an ever-smiling Nar to the annoyance of his teammates and the amusement of the Kumo team. And last, but far from least, said Naruto. I specialize in bojutsu, fujutsu, a bit on enjutsu, and also on snarky remarks and smartass behavior, said the blonde with a bright smile, causing the twins to snicker. All right, I specialize on kenjutsu and enjutsu, too, said Atsui with a temperature fixation. Deadpanned Hanabi. Anyway, I specialize mostly on ambush trap making and tracking with secondary focus on close combat, both with a short sword and a canny in hand to each hand. I study botanic to increase my proficiency through the use of poison. I focus on tracking and disabling targets, said Hinata. I also trained as a chakra sensor, but my main strength is in taijutsu with a secondary focus on long-range lightning jutsu. I also have basic training in medical enjutsu. Kakashi nodded. So you have a tracking, capture, and assassination team with a heavy hitter added in just in case things go out of hand. While I have an assault team, that ought to be interesting. Hinata perked up and activated her Byakugan. 5 ships coming. Pirates, they seem to have taken prisoners this time. They'll be here in 2 hours. Kakashi swore under his breath. Yugito seemed to think for a bit. Kakashi-san, do you know the shadow clone technique? Hanabi will need to work fast and she'll need to have all the ingredients brought to her at once. Kakashi nodded, and just as he summoned 5 clones, Nar summoned 20. The more the merrier. So, what do we need to look for? Hanabi smiled wickedly. The pirates were still blissfully drunk when a light yellow cloud settled over the town. They didn't pay it any mind. Clouds of pollen were relatively common with the amount of plants in the area. When a few of them began to cough, they didn't really worry either. Neither did they when 2 or 3 fell, gurgling in a puddle of thick liquid. It was common for them to throw up. However, when they all began to cough out blood, they began to worry and even panic when they realized they were all dying. But it was too late, and they died before they could do anything. An unnatural breeze swept across the town, sending the cloud in the upper parts of the atmosphere before 8 figures landed among the decimated pirates. The poison will lose all potency in the next 3 hours. Unless it goes into a rain cloud and falls in someone's mouth before the time is up, it will do no damage, said Hanabi. Sasaki looked around the port, honestly ticked off. That wasn't a way of fighting worthy of an Uchiha. They had died without even having a chance to survive, without a chance to fight. It left him uneasy. Sakura, on the other hand, was positively horrified. She couldn't look away from the fear-stricken faces of the dead pirates. Their faces frozen in expressions of pain and fright, their empty eyes boring into her very soul accusatingly. Her breathing picked up. Her eyes were wide, darting from one body to another. Suddenly, a hand on her shoulder forced her to look away and into the eye of her teacher. Sakura, death is a reality of our trade and it can be messy like now. Breathe deeply and remember that they deserved it. They killed and raped innocent villagers for years and now they paid for it. All right. Sakura nodded weakly and tried to get a grip of herself. It was glaringly obvious that Kakashi would have to talk to her later on, but right now they didn't have time. Sakura looked at Hanabi with a slight twinge of fear. What did you put in the pea poison? 2/5 of hemorrhagic poison to kill. 2/5 of neurotoxins to reduce their movement and numb them. And 1/5 of paralytic to stop thoracic movement, thus ensuring maximum accumulation of blood in the lungs. Since the poison was airborne, the lungs were the first affected. They drowned in their own blood, said Hanabi dispassionately, looking at the bodies with clinical interest. If it can comfort you, the neurotoxins also destroyed their nerves in their lungs. They didn't suffer much. It seems to be especially effective, sensei. Would it be possible to harvest some more plants? If possible, I'd like to have some seeds to set up a garden and make some spare poison. Yugo nodded, but a small frown was on her face. Hanabi, Hinata, you seem to take this awfully well. Why should we give any importance to their lives? Asked Hinata calmly, looking at the bodies in slight disgust. We didn't know them. They were monsters. And despite that, Sister gave them a relatively painless death. We have no reason to feel guilty. Maybe we should prepare the ambush instead of talking like that, offered Nar. The creek was nothing more than an indentation in the cliffs hidden by jagged spires of rock rising from the ocean, and there is a large rock arch above the entrance of the creek. Kakashi, wanting to see what his student would come up with, decided to give him an occasion to express his creative mind. I take it you have an idea, Nar. Yeah, there are 5 ships. We have 2 jonin and 6 genin. Each jonin takes a ship. The last 3 ships are spread between the genin in teams of 2. Placing the sisters together seems quite obvious, and I would advise either me or Sasaki with Sakura and the last with Atsui-san. Are you calling me weak? Growled Sakura. No, but you just went through a traumatic event and might freeze up after your first kill. I'd rather place you with someone I know can protect you until you snap out of it than with someone whose capacities I know nothing of. I do not mean to insult your abilities Atsui-san. It is a matter of peace of mind. No worry, I understand. So, who am I going to work with? Blondie or Broody? Now, Sasaki was hesitating. Atsui was beginning to act all smartass like Naruto. But on the other hand, Sakura would piss him off to no end if he saved her. It's all right, Sasuke. Go with Atsui-san. At least he won't ask you out if you save his. Unless you swing that way, of course, said Naruto with a smirk. Atsui answered with a small laugh. Nope. So, we're good. Yugo and Kakashi looked at each other and nodded. Quickly, the teams went to the rock arch and waited for their praise. The fabrication of the poison had taken some time, so the 5 ships should arrive shortly. Looking at his right, Nar tried to evaluate Sakura's state of mind. Sakura if you think you won't be able to go through with this all, don't hesitate to say it. There's nothing shameful in knowing your own limits. Nar, how do you cope so easily with all this death? My life was beyond shitty. I had my first kill when I was 6, a pedophile, but I blocked it all out until recently. Remember Mizuki from the academy? Mizuki-sensei. Yes, of course. And remember all the mess the night after graduation? Yes, but how is that linked? On that night, Mizuki manipulated me into stealing a very important thing in the Hogue's office. He wanted to take it for himself and blame me in the process. I kicked his, but during this whole underscore, I unlocked quite a few unpleasant memories, including my first kill, and much more. When I remembered the face of the guy the first killed, I freaked out completely. I wasn't able to function correctly for 3 days. And that's because Danzo-sama gave me a little pep talk. My point is death is inevitable in our job. The sooner you accept it, the better. Sakura nodded slowly her head. She hadn't imagined that Nar could have had such a difficult life. She only saw the bright and idiotic facade, never going deeper. She looked at the Hyuga twins, wondering if their cold acceptance of death was also a result of their lives. As if sensing her thoughts, Hanabi looked at her and smiled. But her smile felt hollow, empty, fake, wondering why we don't care about all the blood. Sakura nodded. Tell me, do you know what a Jinchūriki is? Hanabi. Oh, please, Yugo. It's not like the fox ears and tails aren't giving it away. We didn't have that when we were abducted. It is, after all, one of Kumo's wonderful gifts to us, said the young Hyuga bitterly, causing the elder blonde to stay silent. Hey, so you know what it is? Sakura shook her head weakly. You see the Beiju like Q. Bye. It's no use killing them, they reform. So mankind went for the next best thing, sealing them. And since these masses of chakra are beyond badass, a simple thingy wouldn't be enough. So they're sealed in people. Those are Jinchūriki. Is that what you and your sister are? Nope. A Jinchūriki isn't supposed to take on characteristics from the Buju they jail. Wait, if a Buju is too strong to be killed, said Sasaki. What happened to Kyuubi? Nar snorted. Guess who's the lucky guy that was born that night? He said darkly. S-class secret. Talking about it is punishable by death. My life is shitty enough with 75% of the adults glaring me to death. Sasaki looked at Nar with wide eyes, shocked beyond belief. Yugo, on the other hand, looked sympathetic. You can tell the fox that Hanabi said, hi. Nar seemed to space out for an instant before refocusing. Huey says, hi, too. Snorted that he didn't forgot the catnip beer. Yugito face-palmed and muttered something causing all those around to look in either surprise or amusement. Naruto, should you have mentioned an S-class secret in front of a foreign team? Asked Sasaki cautiously. Yugo-san already knew. We container can immediately tell when another is nearby. The only mystery was which boo we held. Yugito nodded in agreement. All right, let me get this straight, said Sakura. My teammate has some oversized seal on him with the QB behind it. Yugito-san also has a boo and said Beiju apparently gets high on catnip. Okay, but then what are you two failed pseudo-Jinchūriki? You see, Kumo had 2 idiots who tried to kill the Nadim Rockage, Ginkaku and Kinkaku, the gold and silver brothers. These 2 also tried to take on the QB when it was still free and ended up swallowed. They fed on the fox's stomach for some time until it just threw up and put them back out. But the idiots had gathered some of its chakra in them. They were pseudo-Jinchūriki with independent pieces of QB's chakra trapped in them like some sort of smaller QB. I believe the max they had was 7 tails. Anyway, after their failed coup d'etat, they were captured and jailed. Kumo looked for a way to use their power. And then one day, they abducted 2 cute little girls from Konoha. From then, Hinata took over. We were precious to Kumo. They needed us to be as resilient as possible. So, they thought that associating the Q.B.'s chakra with our Bakugan would be a good way to ensure we would survive as long as possible to pop out a shitload of little babies and reverse engineer Juken. They were confident in their ability to brainwash us into being loyal to Kumo. We were 4 when they sealed it in us. 10 hours of pain non-stop and they failed massively with the sealing. The fox's chakra reacted strangely with ours. And as it coursed through our chakra coils, it mutated us into what we are now. After that, they tried the brainwashing. And ironically, the fox's chakra forbade it. We were completely resistant to any brainwashing they tried. In such cases, the standard procedure is to make the people brain dead. That way, you can still use the genes, but you don't have to worry about any resistance. But they had invested too much in us. And extracting the fox's power would have killed us. Not to mention, it would have failed since it fused with ours. So they decided to see if they could persuade us to be loyal to Kumo. Hanabi began talking again. They placed us in the care of people who had similar plight. Kumo's 2 Jinchūriki, Yugo and B. But after the sealing, we had associated A's face with pain. So we mistrusted them and basically everyone in Kumo in the cloud. People look at us either like we must be raped on sight or like we're failed experiments who should have been put to death, and there's a group that regularly tries to hurt us. The constant whooping Konoha inflicted on Kumo didn't help since these idiots blamed it all on us. We needed some way of retaliation and we went for pranks, but not the harmless pranks. Each and every one of them was obviously designed to kill but made with non-lethal material. That way we killed half of Kumo's Chunin forces, 3 ardors of their Jan, the whole academy students included, the Rockage and the whole council along with 3 of the 5 great clans in Kumo. Strangely, after that, we began to be left in peace a lot more. Basically, we had to fight every day for our peace, said Hinata softly. And during our years in Kumo, we also had to kill quite a few people who tried to hurt us. Hardship and bloodshed are 2 old friends to us. So, it doesn't really bother us. Now, you probably understand why we don't care about killing. We don't know them. They are just threats to our existence. And as all threat, they have to be eliminated. Finished the young girl coldly. Kakashi looked at Yu-Gi-Oh uneasily. Your village really did a number on them. Don't remind me. It makes me sick each time I think about it. I still don't understand what went through A's head when he decided to have them abducted. I don't think he'll ever understand. Oh well, these 2 have taken their revenge throughout the academy and even a little before. They literally swamped him with paperwork. How can some paper be dangerous? Asked Sasaki skeptically. Simple brat, answered Yugo. They caused so much trouble every day that he had to spend all his life in his office with barely 3 hours to sleep. He didn't go home at all in the last 4 years. I heard he's considering his workload right now to be a vacation. Hinata and Hanabi smirked smugly, proud of their handiwork before Hinata activated her Byakugan again. They're almost there. They lapsed into silence, waiting for the ships to appear. Once all 5 ships were in sight, they quickly assigned each group or jonin to a ship and jumped down. While falling, Kakashi took out 2 kana and threw them, killing tow pirates. He then whipped out 5 shuriken, eliminating as many thugs. The ship was quite small. He had already eliminated half of the crew. Landing nimbly on the deck, he darted toward the nearest pirate, smashing his throat with his fist before throwing 2 new kana, killing 2 men and throwing them into the waters. One of the 4 survivors charged him with his sword raised high, screaming a wordless battle cry. Kakashi simply hit him in the jaw before tearing his sword from his grasp and slamming it in his guts with enough force to send the man flying off the ship when he let go of the handle. Kakashi jumped high to avoid a knife thrust, landing on the wielder's neck with all his weight, snapping it instantly. Kakashi looked at the two cowering survivors for a moment before slamming his foot on the deck, causing both of the knives of his latest victim to fly off and into his palms, then threw them at the two pirates' faces. Yugito enlarged her fingernails, turning them into sharp claws, and landed nimbly on the ship's stern before darting forward. Channeling lightning chakra into her claws, she beheaded the apparent captain, and one of his men delivered a spinning kick to a man's jaw, not paying attention to the wet crack that followed before gazing across the ship. 12. Retracting her claws, she dug in her pouch, taking out 4 kunai and throwing them, each knife finding a different target. Dashing forward again, she elongated her claws again and bisected 2 more pirates before spinning around an axe slashing open the throat of the man as she finished spinning. As her rotation ended, she darted towards the last 5 pirates, huddled together in hope that number would save them. It did the opposite. With 3 passes of her claws, they laid on the deck, mangled in bloody remains. Looking at the other ships, she smiled. The battle was ending. Hinata and Hanabi left the rocky surface of the arch with a massive push, summoning to the surface the wilder part of their chakra. Their features became more feral, their eyes narrowed, their small fangs grew a bit, and their nails darkened and sharpened. Landing on the bow of the ship, they startled the pirates. Dashing forward, Hinata delivered a chakra-enhanced kick to the face of the closest pirate, breaking his neck, while Hanabi unsheathed the short sword strapped to her back and slashed open the throat of another. Hinata jumped high and Hanabi ran low. Hanabi threw her sword into the heart of a pirate before jumping at head height and driving her palm into another's face, sending a burst of her unusually potent chakra to liquefy the man's brain. Hinata fell into a cluster of 3 men, lashing out before she even reached the ground. One strike hit a man's head, killing him on the spot. Another turned a heart into a piece of charred flesh, and her last strike obliterated both of her victims' lungs. All 3 fell to the ground. The last one holding his chest, not understanding why he couldn't breathe anymore. Hinata threw 3 kunai, killing 3 pirates and covering her sister's advance. As Hanabi passed near the body of the man with her sword in his chest, she grabbed the handle and pulled it out, never slowing down. As she reached the 3 survivors, she ducked under a clumsy sword strike before driving her blade into the man's skull. Spinning to free her weapon, she brought it down on another's knee, cutting it clean. As the man fell, screaming, she carved his neck in 2 before kicking the handle of his knife. Still in midair, sending it into the last man's head. Sasaki and Atsui pushed off the rock and landed directly on top of 2 pirates, crushing their spines. Sasaki darted to the stern, Atsui to the bow. Atoi unsheathed his sword in one fluid movement, carving through the chest of a pirate from left shoulder to right hip. Dashing forward, he slashed at a man, taking his head before rolling under a double thrust of swords. Passing between his assailants, he spun while rising to his feet, cutting them both in half before completing his rotation and dashing to his next target. With a rising strike, he carved the man in 2, spinning on his heels and stabbing his sword through his next opponent's jaw, piercing the brain. With a tug, he freed his blade and jumped, beheading his last target. Sasaki jumped from his victim's neck, unsheathing the chakudo strapped across his lower back. As he neared the deck, he swung his blade at the shocked pirates, beheading 2 of them in one swipe. As soon as his foot touched the wood, he was moving again, cutting a pirate in 2, spinning around the falling body and the blood, cutting off another man's arms before kicking the handle of the sword, sending it through the man's head before he could scream. Sasaki looked at the 3 survivors, among which was the captain, moving faster than they could react. He charged them, taking out 2 shuriken and throwing them, killing the 2 goons while he jumped past the captain. As he landed, the man's head fell from his shoulders. Atsui and Sasaki looked at one another from across the ship and smirked. Sakura breathed deeply as she fell to battle, closed her eyes, and locked herself away. When she reopened her eyes, all that remained was logic and one objective. Kill the targets. Cocking her fist back, she swung it at a fast-approaching pirate, hitting his jaw with devastating force and sending him flying off the ship. Twisting, she placed her feet on the deck, landing softly. Nar landed too and darted forward, unsheathing his blades in a cross-slashing movement, cutting the pirate into 4 separate parts. Darting forward, the 2 genin met 3 pirates. Sakura jumped, delivering a chakra-enhanced kick to the man's face, sending him flying across the ship, shards of bone and droplets of blood trailing after him. Nar joined his blades into his staff and spun, cutting his enemy's legs with one blade and his neck with the other. Sakura, taking advantage of the last man's shock, drove her fist into his ribs, sending him crashing into the rock cliff and peppering his organs with his fragmented ribs. Charging forward, the 2 teens exploited their opponents' horror and fear to its fullest. Nar, being faster, threw himself in the middle of the fight, spinning wildly, beheading a man, cutting another one in 2 and slashing open the chests of 2 others, causing them to cough blood and choke, leaving them open for Sakura's devastating punches. The 2 men took the attack straight in their solar plexuses. But there was such strength behind the strike that their chests simply caved in and their backs exploded, sending a gory shrapnel of ribs and vertebrae bits to pepper the 4 survivors. Nar charged forward, his staff spinning, and took 2 more heads before stabbing a man in the heart. The last man tried to leave, running to the bow to jump in the waters, but Sakura took a sword laying on the deck, threw it lightly in the air, and slammed her fist in the butt of the handle, sending the sword sailing at high speed into the man's back across the creek and nailing the criminal to a wall of the harbor. Looking at the other ships, the ninja saw that the battle had ended. 30 seconds was all it took, but all 5 ships were now under their control. After a last inspection of each ship, it was confirmed that all pirates had been killed. The 5 ships had been guided to the port and the prisoners freed and fed. Kakashi and Yugito went to a nearby village to ask for help to evacuate the captured villagers, leaving the genin to watch over them. Nar looked at the families, huddled together, hugging each other, crying in joy, reveling in the knowledge that their loved ones were safe. He felt cold. Seeing all this happiness just reminded him of his life, of what he missed. He wondered yet again what it would feel like to have parents, even just one, just to have someone to love him unconditionally. Looking to his right, he saw Sasuke's impassive face, but in the Avenger's eyes, a glimmer of jealousy laid. With a sigh, Nar returned his gaze to the crowd below. He wondered what would have happened had his life been different. Would he have ended up as some sort of evil lord with an army of imp-like thingies and a massive perverted streak? Nah, I'm thinking too much into that. Hinata suddenly landed near them, surprising them a bit. 4 ships coming, completely full of people. Kakashi-san and Yugo-sensei are with them. Looks like our mission will soon be over. Naruto nodded and summoned some clones to tell the families below that their ticket back to a normal life was coming their way. Surbi Hiruzen was a calm man, but what he was reading was beyond shocking. He snapped his fingers, causing an Anbu to appear. Bring me Hyuga Hiyashi. Yugo and Kakashi were sitting on the bow of a ship. Behind them, a group of sailors and fishermen were waiting to reach the harbor to take control of the pirate ships and bring back to the mainland the stolen goods and abducted people. Yugito looked at Kakashi, trying to assess him and overall failing. She knew he was good, very good, one of Konoha's best, but he just gave off the impression of a lazy idiot who left one of his students do all the work. Kakashi-san, I noticed you give a lot of power to Nar. Why, yes, you wouldn't believe how fun life can be with this kid. He's probably the only person that could try to paint a room with a bucket of paint and an explosive tag and actually succeed. Yes, he did. An exploding tag. That's insane. How did he not ruin the room? It was low power. Even so, the shards of the bucket should have pierced the walls. Yes, that's what shocked me. Not only were the walls perfectly painted, but the bucket was also intact. For the life of me, I can't guess how he did that, said Kakashi, looking up from his book with a puzzled look in his eye. And he's being mean and refuses to tell me, said the elite jonin with a pout in his voice. And if the deformation of his mask was anything to go by, on his lips as well. Back on topic. Sigh. In short, you give him that much power for fun. Not exactly. I believe he'll make a fine leader later on. So by letting him take the initiative, I give him the opportunity to gather experience. I'll only step in when I feel his plan won't be good enough. Though that didn't happen yet. Do you do the same with the Uchiha? I would if he took the initiative more often, but he doesn't. I guess I'll have to talk to him about it eventually. Maybe later. He doesn't really seem to be ready to me. Are you talking about his tendency to glare at anything that even remotely offends him? That and more. You'll see what I mean if you stick around long enough. It's just a tad bit too complicated to put in words. When the ships entered the harbor, they saw the prisoners organized neatly on the docks and the genin spread out across the roofs, keeping watch. Yugo nodded in satisfaction. They did their job well. Of course they did. They were well trained. At least mine were, said Kakashi with a teasing smirk. Screw you, Hideki, answered a slightly amused Yugo. The ships docked and the sailors quickly spread between the pirate ships while the refugees boarded. The fleet left the harbor after Naruto carefully noted the place on the map. They reached the closest village in barely a few hours, but the night was already falling. All the shinobi were gathered on one ship, relaxing, talking, or thinking. Sakura was at the bow looking at the approaching village, a distant and almost dead expression on her face. She turned her head when she heard someone sit next to her and noticed it was Naruto. Looking around, she saw the Hyuga sisters talking animatedly and noting things on a paper sheet. Sasaki and Atsui relaxing and talking about something. Noticing the slight smile in Sasuke's face and the fact he seemed to take Atsui's words into consideration, Kakashi and Yugito were also relaxing, leaning against the railing of the ship and reading identical orange books. How? Nar hummed in surprise. He had expected to be the one to begin the conversation, but it could work that way too. How do you all deal with death so easily? Well, no need mentioning the Jonin. And you know, for Hinak-chan and Hana-chan. For Sasaki, after the Uchiha massacre, he probably spent hours thinking about killing his brother for slaughtering his clan. So, he had years to get used to the idea of killing. The actual act didn't really bother him because of that. And you asked Sakura after a moment of silence. I'm complicated, said Naruto with a bitter smile. You've heard people call me Kitsum, right? Well, that was the mask I choose in the Gauntlet, an underground arena built by Danzo-sama. He takes promising students and trains them while keeping them in the normal circuit. The thing is, for a long time, Kitsune and Nar were two different people. Sakura looked at him with wide eyes. Why you mean to tell me that you have double personality disorder? Quote, snorts, had not anymore. Hitsun and the old Naruto began to merge during the Mizuki incident, and the merging finished the night we left Guy's team. Sakura nodded her head in acceptance. Is that why you were so snappy and unstable during the first month of the team? Yeah, The two merging personalities were basically opposites. Nar was completely positive, happy-go-lucky, slightly dumb, and with absolutely no focus. Hitsun was focused, talented, ruthless, and had murderous tendencies. The merging didn't go so smoothly at first, and I could shift from one mindset to the other in a matter of seconds. Kitsune had a deep-seated hatred of you, so that's why I was so cold and demeaning. Why did he hate me? Probably had something to do with your numerous gifts to me in the form of concussions. Sakura looked at him wide-eyed, horrified that she had actually done that. But if I hurt you, why didn't you say anything? Several reasons. First, I healed so fast. I didn't have time to worry about it. I just thought it was some small headache that disappeared soon. Second, my old dumb self didn't know that people aren't supposed to heal that fast, so it didn't strike him as uncommon. And third, he had a crush on you and would have died sooner than. 'Cause you trouble. Sakura nodded her head slowly, remorse visible in her eyes. Now, you asked how I dealt with death so easily, I believe. Well, I don't. Those guys weren't my first kills, but it still shakes me quite a bit, so I rationalize. Besides, I received special training in the gauntlet on how to accept my first kill more easily. Silence fell between the two as Sakura pondered his words. She accepted the truth for what it was. These men were filth and deserved to die, and at least she didn't have to look in their eyes as they died. Once she looked at the situation from a rational point of view, she immediately began to feel better. Looking at her teammate, she realized she didn't know anything about him. She had assumed that despite the changes, he was still the dumb idiot from the academy. And only now did she realize how wrong she had been. You were right, she said softly. Nar answered with a cocky smile. Yeah, I often am, he said, causing Sakura to snort. So, you doing better now? He asked more seriously. Yeah, but I wasn't only talking about that. You were right. I was a complete and stupid fangirl. Old habits die hard, but I'll try to change. I have, too. Naruto nodded in approval. You're growing up. Why did you say 75% of the adults hate you? Hokage-sama must have had Shinobi explain your situation, right? So, why do they hate you? Did they see you as the QB reborn? No, the village isn't populated by retards. The few people who actually saw me as the QB reborn were dealt with extremely fast. They hate me because I am a reminder. When they think of me, they think of the QB. And what they lost because of it. They hate the fact they cannot forget this pain. My only option is to make it so when they think of me, they stop thinking of something else. To make them think of me as a human being, a person. Whirlpool is a way to do that. Becoming Hokage was one too. Nar looked up into the darkening sky. There's another problem. A Jinchūriki can be an extremely powerful being. A good example would be Han of the Steam Armor of Iowa. He is one of the strongest ninja alive, strong enough to fight the Yandai Hokage to a stalemate. What? He is that powerful? Yeah, and he only got the Goi. He must be such KAG if he is so strong. Nope. That's the trick. We are also seen as time bombs ready to explode. And because of that, we are ostracized. Han hates Iowa with a passion. He loathed the rock and has for a very long time. So they placed a seal on him to forbid him from attacking Iowa shinobi. Anyone else is free game. Loyalty is always a tricky issue. Sakura nodded, beginning to understand a bit more. So, you're both a risk and an asset to Konoha. If so, why would they allow you to be mistreated? Or why didn't they train you early on? A Jinchūriki isn't your classic ninja. Emotions play a big role. If you feel isolated, you begin to give in. And with a container, the results can be disastrous. So the old man tried to give me a normal childhood and the occasion to make friends. Didn't work so well. Became and Shikimaru is too lazy to stick up for me and Shoji is way too insecure about his way to defend me without being afraid of being ridiculed too. Why not try with other people? I'm pretty sure Shino would have understood. That's where it gets funny. To make sure my childhood was normal, I wasn't even told about the QB in my guts, and I had to find out the hard way. So, for the longest time, I saw Shino as creepy, even if I felt kinship because of his loneliness. So, I didn't talk to him and ended up lonely myself. As for the others, well, you know just how popular I've always been. Sakura frowned. She remembered all too well. Then something struck her. Nar had no reason whatsoever to be nice to her. She had been from day one to him. Why are you helping me or being so honest to me? Because like it or not, we're a team. If you know a bit more about me, maybe you can understand how I work and the team will only get better. Then you are one of my comrades, so I have to help you mature faster. I don't think we've ever been friends, and I'm not sure we can ever be, but at least we can respect each other, especially now that you dropped the fangirl thing. Sakura nodded. After a few minutes of silence, Nar looked around and saw something that made him smile. Hey, Sasaki, Atsui. Everyone turned to look at Nar, then at the two, and noticed the two swords boys had each other's swords in hand and were talking about the blades and comparing their qualities. Well, before Nar interrupted, now they just had their hands on the blades. Two boys caressing each other's sword. Something you want to tell us? Said Nar with a teasing smile. Sakura repressed a snort. Hanabi snorted loudly. Hinata left out a giggle. Kakashi raised an eyebrow, a spark of amusement in his eye, and Yugito smirked. Atsui and Sasaki remained impassive, then looked at each other in the eyes before grabbing the back of the other's head and kissing wildly. That stopped everyone. They quickly separated and looked at Naruto. Sasaki smirked while Atsui burst into laughter with a loud gotcha. Then Sakura surprised everyone. Ooh-yee-ee-a-a-a-h. She screamed with wide eyes to take in the scene better. A massive perverted smile and the mother of all nosebleed. A second round of laughter followed with only Sasaki not joining in. In fact, the air palled considerably when he realized he had just given wet dream material to one of his fiercest fangirls. Brother, does this count as a miserable life? Nar opened his eyes to find himself in the sewers where he met Kyubi for the first time, and in front of him was said Biju still behind the bars of his jail. Only the fox was grinning like a mad fox. Looking around, he saw Hinata and Hanabi looking around in surprise before their gaze fell on him. Narukun, what the heck? One moment we're going to sleep, the next we're here, said Hanabi. Well, I can't really explain. It seems that your connection to QB here, he said, pointing at the fox, allowed him to pull you in my mindscape. So, I think it's safe to say that he is the cause for those blurry dreams we shared. Correct.